friends, and welcome to the Go and Tell podcast. I'm your host, Lauren Greci. The Go and Tell podcast is a place where we chat all the things from life, motherhood, Jesus, food, health and wellness, and so much more. So grab a hot cup of coffee, kick back, and relax with us. I hope that you find joy, laughter, and encouragement today and every day. Thanks for being here. Hey friends, and welcome to the Go and Tell podcast. Again, I am your host, Lauren Greci, and today I am sharing my second part of the conversation with Johnna Hensley. Johnna opens up in this episode about foster care and adoption. We get into the Bible and talk all about Jesus. It just is such an inspirational episode. Johnna is so full of wisdom and light, and you can tell that she is passionate and on fire for the Lord. So, without further ado, I hope you enjoy part 2 of my conversation with Johnna. Okay, so let's talk for a second about, I know it's going to be hard to chat about your foster kiddos. So, with what you can say, how has that transition been in getting these two kiddos into your home?
Yeah. So we had just wrapped up school for last year and back in May, and which everyone was homeschooling at that time. So we were trendsetters. Okay.
You were doing it before everybody else was.
Yeah. So we just wrapped up school, and Ryan was still working from home. And so it was kind of just this perfect storm had lined up that when we were driving, we had gone on vacation in Alabama, and we're driving home, and we get this call, and the foster placement is a direct relative to our daughter that we adopted. And so we had no idea to expect anything. And then we were like, oh, wow. Okay. My car's full of sand from the beach, and I'm actually in Louisiana, but okay. But we had the perfect scenario because, it was summer, Ryan's working from home, I don't have to homeschool, and we say yes when God presents something to us. And so that's kind of just been our mantra, and our answer is that we walk in it as if it's a yes until it's a no. Mm-hmm. And that's been like our whole journey through fostering and then adopting Stormy and, this placement and everything. So we're like, yes, we will say yes. If God is asking us and presenting this, we'll say yes. Mm-hmm. And so we live on a street that has amazing neighbors, and we're all super close. And so as soon as I hung up with that phone call, I immediately called one of my neighbors, and I was like, hey girl, you got to walk down to my house. I'm going to need you to do a little walkthrough and clean it up. And do you have pack and plays or clothes or anything I could borrow? So within 24 hours, we were set up for taking a sibling group that we didn't know about. So anyway, it was amazing. And it really has been a beautiful thing for my other kids too. Obviously, it's something Stormy is treasuring because she's getting a certain specific experience. But my other kids, they help out tons. And I think sometimes when you kind of live in a bubble, if you will, you don't have to think about those things. You don't have to think about hard things or struggles that little kids have to endure. You don't have to, it's easy to live your life and not have to get down in that yucky stuff with anybody. And so I love that we're able to, we talk very openly to our other kids about life in general, about all the topics. I'm very honest with them about everything. Now specifics of a court case happening, maybe not, but just
Right.
in general. And so I hope and pray that it's going to open up their eyes for the world around them,
Mm-hmm.
that when they leave this bubble of North Texas that they're
Mm-hmm.
in, that they will have eyes to see and be willing to just run to help and be the hands and feet of Jesus.
Absolutely.
And I tell them all the time, like, I would love to live in another country and like be a missionary and do all these things. And that's clearly not what God has asked us to do.
Mm-hmm.
But I tell the kids, I'm like, you guys, like, we basically are being missionaries. We just get to do it at our house.
Yes.
And so that's how we view it. We're seeing it as this is our mission work. We're
Mm-hmm.
on the mission field, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's been nice. It's hard. I mean, I'm sleepy, I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm not gonna act like it's easy, but
Can
it's
you
hard
share the
though.
age of the two?
Um,
No.
yeah, I
It,
probably can.
okay.
You'll probably just like send me a Starbucks gift card, but they they are 10 months old.
Oh my goodness. Little.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. So it's been a blast.
And so how they were then what, 3 months old when you,
They
I
were
mean,
like 0.
they were newborn. Oh my gosh. Wow.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So, it was wild. And again,
Yeah.
there's another thing. People look at us and they're like, dang, she's crazy. And people, they'll say, like, what made you want to do that? They're like appalled by this. And I say, I'm like, Jesus.
Uh-huh.
I really do. Like, that's just what I say.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, that'll shut them up or they'll be really interested.
Right. Like, tell me more about this, Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah. They're like, ooh, that's how.
No, I love it. And I like everything that you just said too, is that you all, like, your mantra is basically you say yes. If Jesus asks and presents something, that y'all just say yes with open arms. And that is exactly what he asks us to do. He asks us to make disciples and to be missionaries wherever we are. And y'all are living and breathing that. And I think that's incredible that you're instilling that in your, in all of your kiddos' lives, because that is huge. Because like you said, we get in this little bubble here in this well-to-do North Texas area where, I mean, everything is perfectly manicured lawns, it's a bit much. And then when you compare it to how people in other worlds, in our world, but on the other side of the world, how they live, like, we are such a selfish, arrogant culture, and it's ridiculous. It
Yeah.
really is.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I was just talking to a friend today and saying that same thing. Like, it's kind of a privilege
Mm-hmm.
to even like make up drama that you think is so stressful, because I
Oh
think
yeah.
sometimes you do that, like, I was late for this and then this happened and then my car and what, and it's like, but you have a car,
Yes.
okay? And you have a watch that you can even check the time on,
Yes.
like, can we just have a reality check
Mm-hmm.
and just,
Yeah.
open your eyes, like open my eyes to
Mm-hmm.
what's around me, and to go back to how we started with the Bible recap, and
Mm-hmm.
just, man, like really
Yeah.
learning God's character and God's heart and recognizing that, because I grew up in church my whole entire life,
Uh-huh.
but there's like politics and there's this and there's that, and so you just assume one thing, but then
Mm-hmm.
when you really get in there and you get to know him, you're like, oh, hold on a minute,
Yeah.
like, wait, he made up a plan to like leave some of the harvest for the poor people.
Mm-hmm.
This is incredible.
Yeah.
I really don't think he's like, ew, go over there. We don't really
Right.
like that. Like that
Well,
ain't, that's not it. That
well,
is
and when you
not.
think of who he used in the Bible, like, I just get blown away when I'm reading it sometimes. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, he used prostitutes, like they're mentioned in the Bible, and how, like, all of these, well-to-do people that we think of in the Bible, it's like they had multiple wives, they had concubines, like this, it's full of people who are sinners that you would never imagine,
Yep. Yeah.
and he
Yeah.
uses them.
Yes, for sure. And just yeah, using what looks broken,
Mhm.
right? But using it for this like amazing thing. And I think like about Hayden, like, my gosh,
Mhm.
from a worldly perspective and from the outside looking in, you're like, oh gosh, wow, he doesn't walk. He never will walk. He can't breathe on his own. He doesn't eat food. He can't go to the bathroom the way we do. Man, just look at that. And God's like, no, 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 no. Like, you're broken. He's fine.
Mhm.
And I'm going to use him and his family, and we're going to do some stuff,
Yeah.
and it's an upside down kingdom.
Yes,
And it's like, whatever we
exactly.
think it is, flip it around,
Mhm.
we're just missing it. And I get so fired up, and I want to just like shake people and
Yes.
wake up.
Yes.
We're missing it.
Do you have, this is off topic, but do you have a subscription to Right Now Media?
Yes.
Have you watched Francis Chan's Mark, the Gospel of Mark?
No.
I mean, he's just, when every day, I feel like he's always about to cry when he talks. He's just so passionate. But that was one of his things. He was like, I don't think people get it. He's like, I don't think you get it. Like, that it's not just, and this was talking about Easter in particular. He's like, it's more than him just coming to earth and dying for us. And we say it so frivolously, like, oh, I know he came here and he died for you and he died for me. Like, no, like he came, he's God that created everything, and
Yes.
he made himself an infant, a naked, dependent infant born into this world. And then he brutally felt all the pain, bled out. Like,
Yeah.
it's just incredible. Like, and I think we just get in this culture of just being like, we just say it all the time, and it's kind of just, yeah, he died for you and me, and this is great, like, yeah, John 3:16. Like,
Right.
no, do you really get
Yes.
it?
Yep. Yep. I don't know. There's a quote I've read before where it's just like, in American church, we just want to wear like Christian t-shirts,
Yeah.
but we don't want to do the thing. Like,
Mhm.
we're just not getting it. And man, that's what I'm trying my hardest to instill in my kids. And I'll tell you one thing that we do. Um, we subscribe to Voices of the Martyrs magazine.
Ooh,
I don't
I'm gonna have
know.
to write that down. I've never heard of that.
Yeah, we get that magazine, and it's with all these stories from all over the world, and there's a map that comes in it. And so we pin that map up, and it shows you like the places where like the gospel is completely outlawed, and they're like colored in black, and then where it's discouraged, it's in gray. And then like I keep the magazines on the Lazy Susan in the middle of our table. I keep that and like a Bob Goff for Kids book, like that has stories in it, and then this other like devotional book. And so we just keep that in the middle of the table. And I figured out if I'll just keep it there and I'll see it, I'll remember to do it. And so that's just become our routine. And so that Voices of the Martyrs, like, it's just a reality check for my kids. And so we'll read, the article, and it's not always like they're not always being martyred, but they're sometimes being martyred, but they're also being persecuted,
Right.
Or they're smuggling in Bibles or digital Bibles or whatever. And so we'll just stop and, the homeschool mom and me is like, now let's look on a map, and how far is that? And what is how long would it take anyway? But so we'll kind of spend time and we'll just kind of pick through it. And we'll talk about, like, right now in our house, oh my gosh, how many Bibles do we have? Like tons of them, different versions, kid versions. Every kid has a Bible. But here's these people that right now today live on this planet, and they don't have a Bible.
Right.
Okay. They can't even read.
Right. It's not even in their language.
And we're, and then they're smuggling in audio Bibles on a tiny microchip. But if they get caught, here's what will happen to them. And I'm just, again, very brutally honest with them. Like, this is what would happen. And imagine right now if somebody walked into our house and took our Bibles or took you out of here or beat your mom and dad up, or, and that is reality. And I don't get why we just miss that. Like,
Right.
do y'all, like, hello world, do you not know that's happening, America? Like, wake up. We we should tune in, and if nothing else, educate your kids on it, educate yourself on it, pray for them, pray for the martyrs. You can sign up for their email list, and they email you weekly, and they say, like, here's who to pray for, and here's who just got martyred. Are you willing to do that?
Yeah.
Anyway, I think, like, it lights me up because I want me and my family to have that kind of faith where I'm like, I'm ready. Like, I'm willing to lay down my physical life, but also my daily life. And that's the point of it, right?
Right.
You should lay down your life. It's not about you. It's just not. It's about dying to self and serving others. And whether that's your sibling that you don't like today, or somebody at the homeless shelter, or some kid at school, or whatever it is, it's dying to self. Like, make yourself last. Stop trying to be first at everything.
Yeah. And that's a really great one too. Whenever the kids are fighting over a toy, it's like, don't be selfish. Let's talk about this. Like, what's the deeper root here?
Yep. Let's get to the heart issue.
Yeah. No, it's incredible. There was, have you ever heard of If Gathering with Jenny Allen?
Yeah.
I love her.
Didn't watch it this year, but my friend did, and she just loved it so much.
Oh, I was in tears, like, pretty much the entire time. And I've virtually attended all the other ones in the past, because you have like the If locals and stuff. So I would do those. And so I've been doing them for a few years, but this year it was different. You can tell, and like listening to Francis Chan and all the other people too, that there's something moving. And I don't know if you feel this too, that we're gearing up. I just feel this, it's, the church, but it's just Christians. Like I feel like we're in this movement towards the end. I feel like.
I would agree 100%. And our D group study that we just completed, something that just kept coming up, and it's kind of like our inside joke, but it's this idea that there's always a remnant all through scripture. Everything that God did, like even in the Old Testament, like the Israelites acted a fool, and he's like, shut it down. But there was always a remnant in everything. And you see that, just through all of it. And so I feel like it's kind of that separating out, like, who's going to be the remnant and who's going to rise to the occasion. And like you said, like, a fire is lit. And I feel that too. Like, I'm like, let me be in the remnant, Lord, please. Like, that is my deepest desire. And let these kids come with me.
I giggle and laugh all the time at, oh gosh, no, I'm blanking. Who was it that turned around and turned to the pillar of salt?
Oh yeah, Lot's wife.
Yes. Like, I worry that that's going to be me. I'm going to be like, it's Jesus, kids, come on. It's Jesus. And I'm going to turn around and turn to a pillar of salt, because I'm like, let's go. Look, he's right there.
Oh gosh. Get in the car seat. Come on.
You don't need your shoes. It's okay. It's all right if you have mismatching socks. It's okay. Let's go.
There's grace for that. Come on, the adrenaline's pumping.
We can get a snack later.
Oh, man.
I love it. Okay. Well, we had a good little Jesus talk there, and I loved every bit of that. Okay. So let's kind of shift gears. Let's talk back to your kiddos here. So you mentioned you have your 2 foster kiddos. Gosh, I didn't realize how young they were too. And Stormy. So how did the adoption process go along with getting Stormy, and how did that all work?
So, so I read through the Bible in 2019. In 2018, I'd read the book Radical by David Platt. That book messed me up in a good way, in a very good way. But my takeaway from that was, you cannot be pro-life and do nothing. And I was like,
like, write that down. That's good.
Preach, right? So just kind of mulling that over, like, well, what does that look like? And then, in 2019, okay, so we read that in 2018, and years prior, before we had my third son, we had talked about should we foster, and we'd gone to an informational meeting, and then I like was surprised with my third son, and so I was like, oh wait, not right now, hold on. But it was still always in the back of our mind, and so then read that book in 2018. So we started that process of fostering, but every single or the licensing, right? It takes a long time. And so we had already kind of kicked that off, but it was going real slow because we already had a lot going on, but we were just like, we're going to be faithful. We're going to walk in a yes until it's a no, and we'll let God close the door. But until then, we're just going to walk in it. And so we'd already begun that. And then when 2019 came and I started reading through the Bible, that's when I was like, oh my gosh, like, look at this. I didn't know any of, I didn't like, again, I was saved and I knew like scripture, like, you knew the gist of it, but I didn't know God's character. It wasn't like just embedded in me. And I wasn't seeking after like, God, make me like you, give me your character. And so in 2019, when I was just kind of coming, realizing that, that was actually when we met her. So we finished our licensing and we were just going to do respite care. So respite care is like 2 weeks or less. So it could be 24 hours up to 2 weeks.
And explain what that is. I know what it is because we have a lot of friends that have kiddos that are adopted or in foster, but explain what respite care is.
Yeah. So to be a respite provider, you're still licensed just like a foster home. You do all the, the licensing and stuff, but it might be that a child who's in a foster home can't travel out of state with the family to go on a vacation, or perhaps there's been an emergency and there's like a death in the family or a funeral to attend, those sorts of things. And they just need somebody to watch the foster child overnight or up to 2 weeks. So those, or you just maybe need a break. So, I mean, those are all appropriate times to use respite care. And so Stormy was already in a home, in another foster home, where she'd been for quite a few months. And there was a health need that came up in that family. And so we took Stormy for 2 weeks. We did the full 2 weeks while they dealt with a health issue that was going on. And oh my gosh, like in the 2 weeks, she was already calling us mommy, daddy. We were just like head over heels, smitten and in love with her. And then we had to take her home. And that had been our first like long extended respite time. And so we were like, oh my gosh, this is so difficult. Like we have to drive her back over there and drop her off, and this is gonna be terrible. And it was a sloppy mess. Like she was screaming, she was clinging to me, I'm crying, Ryan's crying, the other parents are crying. Like it was just terrible. And so we were like emailing the agency, like, is this normal? Is this what foster care is? Oh my gosh, this is hard. How can we feel like this after 2 weeks? What in the world? And we told them, look, if something happens and she needs to move, or, she becomes like, she needs to be adopted, whatever, like y'all think about us, whatever. And so then we kind of went on with our life. And I would text that mom, like check in on her and stuff, but we would always think like, I wonder what she's doing. And we just kept thinking about her. And the ironic funny thing here is we went on vacation. I'm not kidding.
Stop going on vacation.
To the same beach. It was the same place. Like 2 years in a row this happened. So we went on vacation, and yeah, they actually called us like right before we went on vacation and said, we need to move her for various reasons. They needed to move where she was placed. And we were like, okay, yes, but we're about to leave the state. So can you like give us a minute? We got to like run over here to the beach and then we'll be right back. And so um, when we came back from the beach, she got dropped off like the next day, I think it was. Um, and so then she became our placement, and then we adopted her 6 months later.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah,
How
it was
old was
it was
she?
wild. She was 2.
Okay.
Yeah, so we adopted her, and then a couple months later, she turned 3, and yeah, so having her sibling, like the siblings here,
Mhm.
has been like such a gift because there were 2 years of her life that we don't know, like
Mhm.
there was just like chunks of time missing,
Right.
and we didn't get to have that experience. We didn't know like what does she look like as a baby. I don't know what, there was just gaps, but it's like God was like, here, you
Yeah.
can like fill in those gaps. And one of the siblings looks just like her, and so we're like,
Oh,
this is exactly what she looked like as a baby. Like it's
yeah.
exactly, um so that's been kind of an amazing like full circle moment, like,
Mhm.
but yeah, I'm never going to that beach again.
Go the opposite side of the United States next time.
We're like a mountain trip or something,
Yeah.
but I'm not going there.
That's so funny. Man. And it's so amazing as you're talking this, I can just see God's hand in all of this. Like there's a reason why she needed to be placed with y'all and why she was no longer, all of that happened, because now you have these 2 twins as well. Like it was all God just making it work
Yeah,
in his timing that was perfect.
yeah,
It's just incredible.
it's been
Yeah.
fun to be a part of it. I'm,
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm so glad I just say yes to stuff. This is great. And like this is what I'm like, just start saying yes. Look at all the things you miss out if you don't. Look what you're missing.
Yeah. And I think that's a lot of it too, is that we're just very comfortable. We're very complacent people, and we like our cozy comfort of our homes and, how things are. And the thought of doing something, a little bit terrifying or a little bit different than what we're used to. It's like, oh, no, 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 I can't do that. But you
Yep.
can, and we all can. It's
Yes.
just fully
And
trusting.
yeah, and that's the gift that Hayden was to us.
Hmm.
So we kind of got shoved into that,
Right.
and it was like, oh wow, crap, this is really scary and it's very hard. Um, wow, this is a lot, but it conditioned us to be able to do so much more. And still with him, like we're always, it's still a lot. It's a lot of that, of case management and like just troubleshooting different things. But man, I say all the time, like if I had lived the life I'd planned, I'd never do any of these things. I just
Hmm.
wouldn't.
Yeah.
I wouldn't I wouldn't say yes, and I would be cozy and comfortable and complacent and all of those things. And so that's kind of like my mission, is to like go and shake some people and say, "Look, you can pick this. I know you probably don't want to because I wouldn't have, but man, like look what's on the other side of hard, you
Hmm.
know? And I'm teaching the kids this week. We have a blackboard, like a chalkboard in our kitchen, and we put different quotes and we just talk about different stuff. And right now, this week, it says the word grit. And it
Hmm.
says like grit teaches us to do hard things.
Yep.
And I think we miss that as a society. It's like that's
Hmm.
hard. I can't do it. Well,
Oh,
just
yeah.
because something's hard doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. It just means it's hard.
Hmm.
So if there's something hard, that's an opportunity to rely on God to fill in the gaps or where you're lacking. Like now you can rely on him, and like you just say yes, he shows up and does it, but you have to have the grit to do hard things.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah, that's our
you
motto all
know,
the time, is we can do hard things. You can do hard things. Because
yeah,
yeah, nobody wants to do hard things, but it conditions us, it molds us, it makes
yes.
us better people. And yeah, you just have to trust God and let him carry it, let him take it. Hey friends, would you do me a favor? Would you subscribe to the show by clicking that subscribe button wherever you're listening? It makes a huge difference for the Go and Tell podcast community. I would also love for you to share this show with a friend. I know some of you found this show because a friend recommended it to you, so thank you for listening and being here, for subscribing and sharing and showing all your love and support. Thank you. Music was created for the show by Matt Bowen, and I'm your host, Lauren Greci. Now let's rejoin the conversation. Okay, so I'm going to ask a very hard question because I feel like a lot of moms have the same question. So after having Hayden, did you have fear of having more children?
Yes, I think that would probably be the natural reaction. Yeah, so I thought I'm just not gonna have any more kids because I can control this. I have Hayden, that's fine, and then I'll just do that and I'll be in charge. Okay. And that is not what God had for me. um he changed my heart in that for sure. And I was terrified of not necessarily another kid with spina bifida, but I was scared of all the other things I had seen. Mm-hmm. So to go back to the whole like PTSD and like you can see some things in a NICU and there's some sad, terrible situations and, babies die and that's hard. And because of what I'd seen, I was like, oh, I know, I'll avoid pain by just not having a kid. Mm-hmm. And so then I needed someone to come and shake me and say, do hard things, Johnna. So God kind of changed my heart in it. And we were like, okay, he told me, like, he spoke to me, not audibly, but I heard him saying, like, it's not for your glory, but for mine, whatever happens. And it was like, all right, God. So not long after that, we got pregnant with my second son. And so with Hayden's birth, I had to have a C-section. Obviously, they took him away like immediately. I'd struggled through the C-section. So I was like strung out. I didn't know what was going on. I couldn't even see him for the 5 seconds before they took him away. And, then I was having to stay like in the maternity ward because I'm still healing. And my neighbor had her baby that I could hear the baby crying through the wall. And I wanted to just it was horrible. And then they're like, you need to get up and walk laps. Well, you know what you walk laps around? The nursery. And my mother-in-law and she'd be out there walking with me and we would just stop and I'm sorry, I need a moment. And so we would just cry like in the hall. And it was just terrible. Everything was terrible and it just sucked. And so when I was pregnant with Grayson, I was like, oh, we're going to do the opposite of that. So I had a successful VBAC. So like I had a vaginal birth after cesarean. I had a doula who was with me. I had no pain meds at all. I labored at home. I just like rolled up to the hospital at 8.5 centimeters. And I was like, hey guys, so it was completely different. And it was like this beautiful thing. And so I have him. It's great. They get us into a room, like a postpartum room. And I'm like, hey, my baby's in here. So deal with that, like it was like this redemptive thing, right? And then they're like, oh, this is your second son? Okay, well, great. So anyway, just let us know if you need something. And they just like left because I should be a veteran at this, right? Well, then Ryan and I are in the room with this tiny baby and we're like, how do you nurse a baby? Like, because Hayden had never eaten food, like ever through his mouth. And we're like, do you burp it? Like, I don't understand. Like, how does it work? Like, it was just blowing our minds. And I mean, that was just the tip of the iceberg. So every single milestone, like when do they crawl? I don't know. When do they sit up? Beats me. Because Hayden did none of those things.
Mhm.
And, if he did, it was like way delayed. I mean, Hayden was nonverbal till he was 4. So I was just like, this first time mom 2 times. I'm like, seriously, I don't even know. I don't even know what to expect. It was just the most bizarre thing. But that birth experience and having him and just all of that was like a beautiful like redemption, like, oh, okay, I got my like natural childbirth moment, and I got to do skin to skin immediately, and I got to be crunchy and granola the way that I always wanted to. And um so that was, a lovely thing. And he was healthy, is healthy. I mean, he's strong-willed, which, some kids are.
Yes,
But
I
his
have one of
body
those
works
too.
great. So
Yes.
yeah, yeah. So
And then you
yeah.
said your
So
third was a surprise?
my third was a surprise. So yeah, we just had a conversation like, do you think we should have a third kid, or should we wait more time? And then I was like, never mind. We're just my bad. We're just going
Just
for
going for it.
this. Um, yeah. So I had another VBAC. I've had 2 VBACs, which is
Wow.
like, yeah, I'm proud of those.
Yeah.
That's not something that everyone can do. And so I was excited to be able to do that. And that's all of them. I mean,
That's awesome. I love it. I love your whole family. Okay. Is there anything else that you want to touch on or talk about before we start kind of wrapping up?
oh man. I think one thing that I would just encourage people, this is something I've been kind of mulling over and just thinking on, is like, how we'll say like, be the light in the world, you're the salt and the light. And I think a lot of times we kind of take it as a cop out, right? Like, oh, I'll just represent Christ by my actions and I'll be the light. And I think that's great. You should. But also, I would challenge people to also speak and share the gospel,
Mhm.
right? Because I think a lot of times we go, oh, well, I'm shining my light. And it's essentially you've put the ball in the lost person's court. And that's not really fair, because you're just like, I'll just wait for them to come ask me about Jesus. And it's like, go tell them. We
Mhm.
don't have time. We do not have time. You need to go and have a conversation. And, one funny thing that happened when Hayden was in the hospital this last time, I was like, Hayden, do you ever like look at people and just wonder, like, I wonder if they are a Christian, if they know Christ? And he's like, because kids are naive, right?
Mhm.
He's like, of course they are, because he's a Christian and
Right.
everyone around him is. And so he assumes that people are. So then he started a thing where every person who walked in, he would say, are you a Christian? And so, like, some would say yes, some would say no, someone was Muslim, someone, like it was just all over the place. But I'm like, yeah, boy, you
Yes.
do that, because you could sell ice to an Eskimo. So if we can get you like evangelizing, this is what we need.
Yes.
And so anyway, I mean, I think I would just throw that out there as a challenge. Like, say the words too.
Yes.
Don't only try to be the light and show an example, but like have
Mhm.
conversations. And not that you need to beat down someone's door with a Bible tract, but like
Yeah.
just talk to them, explain why you're doing the things that you're doing, why you look like light. And,
Mhm.
anyway, so
And it doesn't have
that's
to
just
be
my
perfect. And I think that's what I think, at least for
thing.
me, that always held me back from sharing in the past was because I still consider myself a fairly new believer. When I think of like when I came to Christ, I wasn't baptized until I was 30. So this was
Uh-huh.
just 7 years ago. So for me, I was always like too timid and like, well, I don't know enough. I can share when I know more. And that's
Yeah.
not it. And I've come to that realization more recently that it's just opening your mouth and just talking and saying it.
Yep. Yep.
And I just pray every single time when I'm about to have that conversation and go there to be like, God, give me the words. Just
Absolutely.
speak through me
Yeah.
and speak for me because I don't know it all. And I just need your help in this moment.
And
Openly
something
talking.
I've learned, that there's freedom in this statement, but Jesus saves people. Like, I don't save people. You
Mm-hmm.
don't save, Jesus saves people. So
Mm-hmm.
all you have to do is, like you just said, ask the Spirit, give me the words. And I've tried to teach my kids too. I'm like, the day you plant the seed is not the day you eat the fruit. So you might
Good.
say something to somebody and they start mulling it over. And
Right.
then, somebody else mentioned something else. And so
Mm-hmm.
it might be years
Right.
later, but you've got to plant the seed. Like you have to like say something. Like if the
Mm-hmm.
Spirit is nudging you, or like listen, tune in, put down your phone, stop scrolling, tune into the Spirit, look who's around you, look them in the face, and recognize this is a person made in the image of God. And it's kind of on me to go and share the gospel with them. We have a sign above our garage door where, like in the house, when you're going into the garage, and it says, "Go and make disciples."
Oh, I love
And
it.
then I just wrote, like, it's quoted, like Jesus said
Mm-hmm.
that. And, like, if it's in red, you need to tune in and
Yes.
listen, especially.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, let's go and make disciples. And you're not going to make them by not talking.
Right. You've had so many wonderful little snippets that I'm just going to have to pull little quotes from because it was
Oh,
just so enlightening. Thank you so much for sharing everything. Okay, so
yeah.
like I said in the past, one of my emails that I always ask 3 questions to every guest: what are you reading? What are you loving? And what is making you laugh? So what are you reading?
Well, obviously, I'm reading the Bible recap,
Yes.
as everyone should get on board.
Mm-hmm. Amen.
Yeah. So do that every single day. I wish I had more time to read, but it takes me forever now. I love to read. Like historical Christian fiction is
Mm-hmm.
my favorite. But I'm right now reading a book by Rachel Cruz, Dave Ramsey's daughter.
Oh, mm-hmm.
Know Yourself, Know Your Money. It's so
Ooh.
interesting to me because it talks about like the environment you grew up in, and like what was the like money classroom like, and like how that affects how you handle your money now, and then you merge that with your spouse and they have a different,
Mm-hmm.
so it's kind of like, why do you do what you do, like.
Gotcha.
And I'm always interested in like people's behavior and like
Yeah.
what's at the root of that, like
Uh-huh.
why do I spend this way or save, or why am I so.
Mm-hmm.
So that's been an interesting read. um what am I loving? Okay, have you watched The Chosen?
Yes.
We
I haven't
just
seen the
like,
second season though. Did it already air?
I think one episode of the second season has come
Okay.
out. We just kind of started it, like I feel like we're late to the game. Like,
Oh, same here. Like we just started it not that long ago.
yeah. Well, it overwhelmed me because there's like their app, but I don't
Yes.
know how to like shoot it to the TV. Like, I don't get how to make it. And they're like, it's apparently easy, but I can't figure it out. So we watched it on YouTube. Like,
Mm-hmm.
we just watched it on the TV from YouTube. And so Ryan and I started watching it. Well, then the kids watched a couple minutes and they love it too.
Okay.
So every night, like we really don't watch TV like hardly ever, but they'll be like, "Can we watch like The Chosen?" And so we'll watch like 10 minutes of it. But for anybody who doesn't know, it's like basically it's the Gospels, but it's done really well, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah.
And it's kind of more like the perspective of the disciples and
Mm-hmm.
just what it was like to be chosen by Christ, and for him to
Yeah.
say like, "Hey, come follow me." Like, what was
Yeah.
that like?
Yeah.
So I'm really enjoying that. I'm also loving my D group. Everyone should join a D group as well. It's
So
just
I
like,
know you've mentioned that over and over. Explain that to people who don't know what D group is.
yeah, D group, mydgroup.org. It is a Bible study that runs like in 6 week sessions. So they're like kind of short and sweet. You can pop in and out if you need to. But Tara Lee Cobble, who does the Bible recap, she's been doing D group for probably like, I don't know, 12 or 13 years maybe.
Hmm.
Um, anyway, it's just like sort of the CrossFit of Bible studies, if you will.
I like
So
that.
if like but I tell everyone, like, you should totally join a D group, because if you want to grow in your walk and you want to be challenged, that is the place to do it. So you memorize scripture, you have a prayer partner, and you confess your sins to one another and then pray for one another. You study the
I like that.
word. I mean, it's like it's basically what church was in the book of Acts.
Mm-hmm.
You meet with other believers, you
Yes.
study the word, you confess your sins. We have a service project every session. Yeah, it's been like a game changer for me.
I love
I just don't
that.
know what I'd do without it.
That's
Yeah,
so
it
good.
keeps you accountable and in the word. So I'm loving that. And what's making me laugh? I I would say my life because it's like, oh, this is a joke. It's like stomach bug with 8 people and then like the sickness and all these things. But yeah, no. I don't know. I think what I like to do to just like numb my brain is I just think I love to sit on Pinterest and just find memes
Oh yeah.
of like different topics that are just like cracking me up. I don't know. It's just when I find a good one, I just will giggle about it
Yeah.
for a long time, probably like longer than normal. Like
Yeah.
I found one the other day that it was like this broken chair that had like wooden legs, but it was broken. So it just looked really like frumpy and
Yeah.
like saggy, and the legs were all wonky and laid out on the sidewalk. And the meme, like it said at the top, it was like, I'm literally this chair right
Yeah.
now. And I'm like, yes, this is
Yes.
this is my truth right now. So I just like to find good, funny ones. I go to yoga as well,
Mm.
so that keeps me like kind of calm.
Yes.
And so I like to find funny like yoga memes and
Yeah.
send it to my yoga friend, and like just silly things
Mhm.
to keep it light.
I love it. Well, Johnna, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to chat with us and encourage. And you did so much pointing to Jesus, and I'm just thrilled for you and your walk with the Lord and how just you are the light. Like you really are being that light, like we were talking about, and you are going out. And I know that you have planted lots of seeds and you've done a lot of encouraging, I'm sure, and reached a whole bunch of mamas and fathers, kids, everyone who could
Yeah,
be
yeah.
listening. So
Aw.
thank you. Thank you
Yeah,
for taking time out to do it.
thank you so much. This was fun. I enjoyed it.
Thank you for listening to the Go and Tell podcast with Lauren Greci. If you liked what you heard today, please subscribe, comment, leave a review, and share with your friends. Music was created for the show by Matt Bowen, and I'm your host, Lauren Greci. I'll be back here next week with another great conversation. Thanks for listening today, friends.